Alright y'all, we're about to kick it old school on this video because we're going to go back to long division. Back in the day, you learned how to divide 7,443 by 3. And what you did is you wrote 7443 in a house, and then you put a little 3 out front, and then you started asking yourself some questions. So of course, there's a reason why I'm doing this to start, but the questions you used to ask yourself is, how many times is 3 going to 7? And the answer was 2. But then you had to do 2 times 3 is 6, and you would subtract whatever you had here. So you would subtract 6 from 7, and that would give you 1, and then you'd bring down the rest. And then you would do it all over again. So you'd say, 3, how many times do you go into 14? And the answer would be 4. 4 times 3 is 12. We would subtract that. 14 minus 12 is 2. Bring down your 4 and your 3, and you do it again. How many times is 3 going to 2? None. How many times is 3 going to 24? 8 times. 8 times 3 is 24. Of course, we subtract, and we've got a 3 left. And obviously, 3 goes into 3 once, so you subtract 3, and you had no remainder. And that's a good thing, because that means 3 is a factor of 7,443. Okay? Now, we're going to go back and play with one with a remainder. So we would first ask, how many times is 9 going to 5? It doesn't go in there any times. So how many times does 9 go into 57? And the answer was 6, obviously, in this placeholder, because it doesn't go into 5. So then you would just have to start asking yourself the same old questions. What's 9 times 6? Would be 54. Subtract. Obviously, those cancel. We have a 3, 44. How many times is 9 going to 3? It doesn't. How many times is 9 going to 34? Well, 4 is too much, so you have to do 3. And that would give you 27. And then 34 minus 27 would give you 7, 4. So then, how many times does 9 go into 74? It goes in there 8 times, and you get a 72. And then you subtract 72, and you have a remainder of 2. So then you would just write that as R2, or if you were really fancy, it was 638 and 2/9. You would just write your remainder on top of what you're dividing by. But the bad news is the fact that 9 isn't a factor of 5,744. Okay? Of course, there's a reason to why we did that. We had to kick it old school before we can start dividing polynomials in Algebra 2. Okay, so dividing polynomials is very similar. What you do is write x minus 7 out front, and you stick x cubed minus 4x squared minus 19x minus 14 in the house. And now you ask the same question, but you want to focus more on the first term. So you're about to say x times what gives you x cubed? And the answer to that is x squared. So you're going to put it in the x squared column. Notice they're nice and organized. So x squared times x is x cubed, and x squared times a negative 7 is a negative 7x squared. Now we're going to subtract this. So one of the things you can do is you can put a big old minus sign in front if you know for a fact you're going to remember to subtract. Or what you can do is you can put a change of sign for both of those. Now I'm not going to tell you which way to do it. Just make sure you are subtracting. If you like changing the signs and adding, that's fine too. Okay? So what's going to happen, those guys are going to cancel. Negative 4x squared and a positive 7x squared is going to give you a 3x squared. And of course, you bring down the 19x and you bring down the 14 as well. And now you do it again. So you say x, how many times do you go into 3x squared? And the answer to that would be 3x. So 3x times x is 3x squared, and 3x times a negative 7 is a negative 21x. Now again, your choice. You are subtracting this. So you can subtract them out front, or you can change the sign of both, which would give you negative 3x and a positive 21. Either way, those guys cancel. 19 minus a negative 21 is 2x minus 14. Last step. How many times does x go into 2x? You need to multiply it by a 2. So 2 times x is 2x, and 2 times a negative 7 is a negative 14. Of course, you are subtracting, which means you're changing both of those signs. 2x minus 2x and negative 14 minus a negative, aka plus 14, cancels, and you're done. And you have no remainder. So x minus 7 is a factor of x cubed minus 4x squared minus 19x minus 14, which means, yeah, in a way you actually just factored. And if you're thinking about something really, really slick, you could factor that to x plus 2 and x plus 1. So x plus 2 times x plus 1 times x minus 7, if you were to multiply that all out, you would actually get this number, this big old expression right there. But that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is, how do you do long division? So here is another example for you. What you're going to do is x squared minus 2x plus 2. And that's going to divide into 2x to the 4th power plus 3x cubed plus 0x squared plus 5x minus 1. So the whole purpose of this question, not only to give you more practice, you need to make sure you have placeholders. You are not allowed to skip. So you can't go from x to the 4th, x cubed, and skip over x squared to get 5x. You must have that placeholder. Okay? So what I would like you to do at this moment is pause the video and see if you can answer that. Give it a try. Go! First step, x squared times what gives you 2x to the 4th power? The answer is 2x squared. So 2x squared times x squared is 2x to the 4th. 2x squared times a negative 2x is a negative 4x cubed. And 2x squared times 2 is a positive 4x squared. And of course, we are subtracting. So we're going to subtract all of those. That's going to cancel. 3x cubed minus a negative 3x cubed is 7x cubed. And 0 minus 4 is a negative 4x squared. Bring down the 5x and the negative 1. And we do it again. X squared times what gives you 7x cubed? The answer is 7x. So 7x times x squared is 7x cubed. 7x times a negative 2x is a negative 14x squared. And 7x times 2 is a positive 14x. We are going to subtract those again. So those guys are going to cancel. Negative 4 minus a negative 4 turns into 10x squared. And 5 minus 14 is going to end up giving you a negative 9x and then minus 1. So you're going to have one last step here because you're at the end. So what times x squared is going to give you 10x squared? And the answer to that would be 10. So 10 times x squared is 10x squared. 10 times a negative 2x is a negative 20x. And 10 times 2 is a positive 20. And you're going to subtract those guys. And those cancel. Negative 9 plus 20 is going to give you 11x. And then minus 21. And that's your remainder. So your final answer would actually be 2x squared plus 7x plus 10 plus 11x minus 21 over x squared minus 2x plus 2. All right, so that was a bit of a challenge, but long division is a pretty important skill. So just make sure. Now the bad news is x squared minus 2x plus 2 is not a factor of that because you have a remainder. Only when you don't have a remainder is it a factor. So here's one more big one for you. I would like you to carefully take note. There's a skip, so be careful. But you're going to do x squared minus 4. And that's going to give you x to the 4th plus 2x cubed minus 5x squared minus 8x plus 4. You've got one more example to give this one a try. Whenever you're ready, press pause, give it a try, press play, and see if you got it correctly. Give it a shot. Let's do this. We need an x squared, so you're going to go way over here. X squared times x squared is x to the 4th. And x squared times a negative 4 is a negative 4x squared. I said it's very important to make sure you keep your columns correct. So of course we're subtracting. So for this example, I'll just change the signs. So that way you can see it done both ways. Whatever way is your favorite, go with it. Those cancel. This guy's got to come down. These guys, you're going to have a negative x squared. And then this comes down, negative 8x plus 4. Do it again. X squared times what gives you 2x cubed? That would be a 2x. 2x times x squared, 2x cubed. 2x times a negative 4 is a negative 8x. We're subtracting, so we can just change the signs. Those cancel. Bring down negative x squared. Those cancel. Bring down positive 4. You can put a 0x there if you want a placeholder. And then x squared to a negative x squared, we need a negative 1. Negative 1 times x squared is negative x squared. Negative 1 times a negative 4 is a positive 4. Change the signs. So that becomes a positive and that becomes a negative. And those cancel. That's already gone, just a placeholder. And those cancel. So you have no remainder. So again, remember, no remainder means x squared minus 4 is a factor. So again, the purpose of this video is to show you how to do long division. So that means x squared minus 4 times what you have here, x squared plus 2x minus 1. If we were to multiply that out, we would get this. X to the 4th plus 2x cubed minus 5x squared minus 8x plus 4. That's how you can tell that you did things correctly. But just a little mini extension. That's the difference of two squares. So you have x plus 2 times x minus 2. And this guy right here, what multiplies to a negative 1 and adds to a positive 2? Well, nothing. So we just have x squared plus 2x minus 1. So as you can see, that would be your final answer if we were going to factor that entire thing right there. That's one of the reasons why you use long division. It's actually a form of factoring. Okay? That's it for this video. This is Longo and I'm out. See you, bye.